it seems like Nylander's getting closer here.
It does. And I do wonder, boys, if this series was 2-0, is Nylander in tonight? I genuinely believe maybe that's the case. The fact that Sheldon Keefe's already said there's a chance. So we can tell he's clearly getting closer. He took the line rushes. And I'm wondering if that win in game 2 actually bought Nylander another game to recover, because obviously, depending on what the injury is, it's something that's clearly touchy. If it's a stiff neck that can spasm, if it's something related to concussion or vertigo, whatever it is, it's something that maybe you could trigger if you come back too soon. So maybe that win in game 2 just sort of bought a little bit of runway in terms of urgency.
Yeah, possibly, right? If you go down 2-0 and you go home and it's like, we need you, we're going to be down 3-0, and that's pretty much curtains. So the fact that they tied the series and they got 2 games at home is it does buy him some time. And if it is, like, obviously it's something odd, it's something finicky, because it's not like he got buried from behind or got a slap shot in the air. Like, it's not something we could see and tell, and it's not obvious. He played the last game of the season. It was nothing obvious that hurt him. So something finicky like that's just seems like it's teetering on the cusp of, I can't play tonight, it's not worth it, as opposed to, no, you have to get in there, you got to play it. It makes sense that he's biding a little bit more time with that win, but time is still ticking. Every game is super important. I mean, I know everyone's, waiting, holding their breath, trying to get Willie back, because he's a huge asset to this team. And for him to be in the playoffs and doing his thing out there is crucial to winning the series.
It really is, Rosie. And I think with Willie as well, I think he's the type of player that this type of injury, you have to wait it out longer. If he's a crash and bang fourth line forward, he maybe can play a little stiff, but Willie's game is that puck handling ability and his ability to skate the puck out of trouble. You need to be fluid, I think, with your body to be able to play at the level that they need from him. And I know the power play got sorted out. They looked way more organized in game 2, but it still has been a problem on and off gaining the zone against the Bruins and getting set up. And Nylander's so good at that. I think it's his number one skill that he brings to the team. He's just so calm with the puck, and he's so good at gaining that zone, even skating the puck out of trouble. I don't think he gets enough credit for that in the defensive zone. And with this version of the Leafs, this Brad Treliving built team, much tougher on D, but also bigger, a little slower. And I think that puck retrieval skill in the defensive zone is really important for Willie too. So they really do miss him, specifically the skills he brings to the table.
So you had a really good piece over at dailyfaceoff.com put out today about Mitch Marner. Off the top of the show, we talked about the Toronto Sun front page, which was just ridiculous. But what's been your read on Marner? What could people expect from the article?
Yeah, it's tough. I didn't go with the extreme hot take saying Marner is completely invisible, but I think that you're lying to yourselves if you think he's the same player in the playoffs as he is in the regular season. If you look at his career points per game, it's 28 goals, 91 points per 82 in the regular season. It's 16 goals, 74 points per 82 games in the playoffs. He's not the same player. He has 1 goal in his last 11 playoff games. And for Mitch, I don't know what it is. You can't blame it on his size, because look at Brad Marchand, look at Jonathan Marchessault. There are smaller guys out there. Logan Stankoven's a rookie. It's not about the size. It's about the fight. And what I've seen is Marner playing on the periphery, going for those sauce passes through the legs, and he's not slashing to the net, using his speed to beat Bruins defenders. And it's just a matter of, how do you find that spark? If he can't do it himself, if he can't find it within himself, can you do it if you're Sheldon Keefe? And that's why the line rushes concern me. You have Nyes and Tavares Marner still out there together. They've been really bad as a line. Absolutely caved in at 5-on-5 in terms of the scoring chances, the expected goals, all that kind of stuff. That line's not working. The problem is, if Nylander's not in the lineup, you just don't have as many options. And I think you still need Marner up there with Tavares to be able to drive that line. So it's tough. I think it really just is an example of how important it is to get Nylander back. Marner's not going. At the same time, he is, throughout his career, playoffs, regular season, much better player at home. He likes that home cooking. He likes that adrenaline he gets. Growing up a lifelong Leaf fan, it seems to feed him a lot more at home. So I think he's going to be a lot better tonight.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's nothing else to say except he's playing like chicken shit. Like he's scared. He doesn't have the will or the tenacity to go into will himself into, being effective. He's playing scared, and that's just the theme out there. And I'm sorry, but you go through the lines and you go through, the Wendell Clarks and the Doug Gilmores and the Shane Corsons and it's just like those guys bleed blue is what we're talking this time of the year. Is he bleeding blue or is he bailing? in the blue. Like, think about the crest on your jersey, what it means, how many people care, how big of an opportunity this is for him, for the team, for the city. And he's pulling shoot. There's so many clips of him. There's no other way to explain it. It's not like he's getting bad breaks, not like he's getting bad bounces. It's not like there's no puck luck. He's absolutely pulling the shoot at opportunities where he should put the hammer down and take it to, spots that might be uncomfortable. But how detrimental do you think this performance, if it doesn't improve, is to his future in Toronto?
I think it's a great point. And Rosie, I think you're bang on. I think you can visibly see it, right? It's a mental problem for Marner, I think. And I wonder, if you look at the future in Toronto, is this a case of, does he love this thing too much? When you've grown up in this market your entire life, sometimes it works. Obviously, Max Domi seems very comfortable with it. John Tavares has found a pretty comfortable spot with it. But for Marner, I think it works against him. I think there are just nerves there, and you can just see him visibly shrinking. So I agree. I think if he does not find a way to become regular season Mitch Marner in the playoffs, and if the Leafs, let's say they get bounced in the first round, I think you have to sort of look long-term and think, okay, we've seen enough of a sample size, how many playoff runs, almost a decade of playoff runs. We know what version of Marner we're getting every spring now. And if it's not the version you need, then maybe you have to explore making a change in the future. I don't think it's too late, though, to turn this around. There's no doubting his talent. It's just, I wrote in the article, and this is no disrespect to your line of work and your playing days, Rosie, but Ryan Reeves cannot be outplaying Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner makes $10.9 million. Ryan Reeves is absolutely outplaying him so far in the series, and that is great for Reeves. It's the best he's looked in a Leaf uniform, but overall, that's a very bad sign for the team.
It is, and it's funny. Go ahead, Rosie.
It's embarrassing they're even being spoken of in the same sentence. They're not even on the same planet as far as expectations in the playoffs. The fact that you're even mentioning Reeves not only, competing, but outplaying Mitch Marner is flat out embarrassing. And it speaks volumes to, how short this guy's shortcomings are in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that fourth line has been fantastic, I think. I'm actually pretty blown away by how effective they've been. But you just got to find something for Marner. And I do wonder, you got the last change. Of course, you could send him out there with Matthews for brief spurts on the fly in game 2, which Keefe did, but maybe you just juggle your matchups mid-game and get Marner some time out there with Matthews, because it is worth noting, Matthews is better with Marner as well. Matthews can do it on his own, but he is still better with Marner too. So you're helping each other. You're helping both guys in that case. Yeah. You just got to find a way to get him going, just something, because it doesn't seem like he's willing to pull himself into the fight. That's why I think you have to put it a little bit on Keefe to find the combination that will drag Mitch Marner into the fight.
Yeah, I just think it's wild for a guy who obviously is going to position himself to try to make more than Willie Nylander on the next contract, needs like a superstar in Austin Matthews to get cooking. But it's funny, I was watching that Canucks game and Elias Pettersson, same conversation, like the drive just wasn't there, man. It was bizarre. And I know it's one game against the Nashville Predators. You lose your star goalie. I get that. But very, very similar situations. And that's all I wonder with Marner. Like, what can they do? Do you think the last change can help get Marner cooking? Because I know a lot of people were talking about the minutes and how last year he was averaging around, 23, 24, and the other night it was around 18. Do you got to play the guy more to get him going more?
I think maybe you do, because Marner, at his best, he is an all situations player, right? He can play in any situation. He is very underrated as a defensive player. And if I think back to the best moments of Marner in the playoffs, I think that's one of the earlier series against the Bruins when he was blocking shots like crazy. There is a degree of tenacity he can bring, but maybe it's one of those things where you need him just getting more touches, getting his confidence back, because I do think it is a confidence problem. So I think you're right, Nick. And to me, the solution to that is use that last change. Even if it's not all game long, just get him out there for some shifts with Matthews and get him some meaningful touches, some dangerous touches, because Mitch Marner has not been dangerous at all in this series. And that's weird to say about someone whose game is supposed to be scoring and threatening at all times.
What about, the discipline issue? I mean, they've come out, they've obviously built a tougher team. They've tried to, figure out their issues with that as they've been pushed around and pushed right out of the playoffs before physically. They've kind of remedied that. But I mean, do you think it needs to be discussed from Keefe or some of the leadership on like how you go about it? You look at a veteran team like the Bruins and Marchand, he's like an expert at this, and he knows when to put pressure on that type of style of hockey and when to back off. And he's kind of an expert at it. And I mean, you know, you look at the McCabe cross check, like it's just unnecessary and obvious. Like you can't make it obvious for the ref. You know, Bertuzzi going like straight into the thing and whacking him, like you're just not going to get anything out of that. You have to be more discreet about it. You think that's going to be something that they'll remedy tonight? And how important is that?
I'm so glad you mentioned it, Rosie, because I actually think this is the most important storyline of Game 3. And I tweeted this earlier this morning. Typically, you know, you go into a building as the road team and it's okay, survive the first 5 minutes. I think the Leafs have to survive themselves for the first 5 minutes tonight because they're going to be fired up. The crowd is going to be fired up. It's not that regular season ghost crowd. Playoff crowd at Scotiabank Arena is different. The Leafs have the momentum. This is going to be a raucous building, and the adrenaline is going to be pumping to start this game. And we saw it in Game 1. The Leafs, they just came out a little too fired up. It was exciting to watch, but they almost were overcompensating, trying to say, look at us. Hey, we're tough now. This is our new identity. And I think there's going to be a temptation to just come out flying tonight, and you've got to be able to rein it in. They did a decent job of reining it in Game 2. They had a few moments, like you said, Rosie, but I think they did overall a much better job. So I think you especially have to talk to guys like Reeves and say, okay, I know you're going to want to lift this crowd up, Bertuzzi too, but just like dial it back 10%, because otherwise I can already see this happening. Wild start, flying, coming out hitting, and then a power play for Boston 2 minutes into the game and a goal, and then the crowd goes quiet.
Brutal, for sure.
Yeah, composure is the big word. Discipline too, guys. Like even dating back to Game 2, we talked about this on yesterday's show. It's insane to me how the Leafs were perceived as the softest team in the league like a year ago, and now it's like they're getting called for shit being the dirty team. Like it makes no sense to me. Like I don't know when you're in the right world where Brad Marchand get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Like that's a joke. That guy grabbed the wrong leg and drew a call with 6 minutes remaining in a pivotal playoff game. I think it was disgusting. It was an absolute joke. Having said that, the Leafs need to know better. And I think that's perfectly put, Larks, where it's like you can't get your emotions get the best of you, right? I think when you give Boston those power play opportunities, they're going to burn you. We know the Leafs PK is not good. I think discipline's the key to this series moving forward.
It is, because the Leafs were, I would say, a better 5-on-5 team, and they're the best 5-on-5 team in the NHL in terms of scoring goals. It's their worst penalty kill in, I think, 14 years this year. So it's clearly their Achilles heel. And honestly, it's the same advice that I give to my own daughters. The older one is always roughing up the younger one. The younger one is like selling, going for calls, like she's rolling on the ground. And I always tell my oldest, listen, you just can't put yourself in the situation. I know she's exaggerating, but just don't put yourself into those circumstances. You'll be fine. And I look at, even though it was an offsetting penalty, to me, it was the Lyubushkin one that really bothered me in Game 2. The extra shots after the whistle that were just not necessary at all. And you just have to use your head and keep that adrenaline in check. Obviously, you want to assert your physical dominance, and I think it's an exciting new identity for the team because they had to try something different this year, and I think it's better built for spring hockey. But there's a dial. They got the dial right in Game 2, so I'm a little concerned. Game 3, they're going to be quivering with adrenaline to start this one.
And I'm sure it'll be addressed by the coaching staff because it was obvious, and there's a way to go about that. Like, especially after the whistle, you got to be kind of sneaky about it. Marchand is like that. I mean, you go right towards the guy, you're staring right at him and you're giving him shots. You're standing out like a sore thumb. These guys have played hockey their entire lives. They know what that looks like. It's obvious. Like everyone's looking at you, but if you're in kind of a scrum, you're not even looking at the guy and you're kind of looking at the ref. Marchand does this. Like he'll give guys shots but he's not looking at him. So it doesn't look like you've lost it and you're engaging in the guy. You don't even look at him, but you're giving him little shots to the face and little jabs, pissing him off. It's just little things like that. It's little skills that, it keeps you under the radar. It doesn't go across the line. But when you rock the boat so much that you're the guy that's just dumping out of the boat, it's obvious that you just give the ref an obvious reason to throw his hand up and be like, you just clearly, and Lyubushkin did it. Bertuzzi did it. McCabe did it. I mean, just dial it back. You can run and gun and hammer guys and fly in there in the scrums and grab the guy by the scruff of the neck. All good. You'll get away with that all day in the playoffs. You just can't do that extra obvious stuff where everything's settled down. You're the only guy going above and beyond. You're going to pray to the penalty box. It's going to kill you. So I agree. They got to tone that down a little bit. Be a little smarter about it. Be a little sneakier about it. Still play physical. Don't back off. That needs to be part of your game. But I think they're just a little bit green in it so far, and they need to do some maturing in that way, and hopefully they do it fast.
It's true. And with Marchand, is it weird, boys, that I actually admire it? I'm impressed by his ability to do this, because this is the most suspended player in NHL history, and he manages to fly under the radar. Like,
Crazy.
that is a veteran, man. And I was looking at some stats before the series. He was out of, I think it was like 592 forwards. He was third in the league in penalties drawn per 60 minutes. He's just amazing at it. The fact he can grab the wrong leg and still sell it. And also look at the infractions the Leafs have gotten in the series and how many of them have to do with Marchand already, right? It was, well, Domi and him off the start. It wasn't a penalty off the start of game one, but it was the Bertuzzi slash. He's always at the center of it, and it's his goal. Like, he's just in their head. He's the one guy left from the 2011 team. He's the one guy that's been there for every one of those defeats over the Leafs. And I think that he knows he's in their head, and I think that's one of his most important jobs in the series. And so far, he is executing it pretty well. So you have to watch him at all times and just not get drawn in. It's just so amazing how good he is at doing it, though.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.